Does your company build large projects for institutional owners? If so, you're in the right place. My guest today is Huw Roberts. He spent decades watching construction relationships from both sides of the table. As an architect turned tech executive, he now runs PMWeb, the project management software trusted by Disney, Carnegie Mellon, JP Morgan Chase, and many, many others. The software oversees billions in construction projects from the owner's point of view, and that means Huw sees exactly what sophisticated owners really want from their contractors and what gets contractors blacklisted. Today, we're diving into the insider playbook for construction company owners who want to break out of just being a commodity and start winning the projects that are complex with high-profile owners that actually make them money. And so let's dive right in. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Huw, welcome to Construction Genius.
Eric, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to a good discussion.
Yeah, I'd really like to dive into it. I know that your company, just to introduce yourself real quick and your company. I'm interested about that.
Yeah, so I'm the CEO of PMWeb, a software company. We make software for owners to manage their construction projects and their portfolios for all kinds of buildings, ranging from universities to airports to financial institutions. And our software interfaces between the contractor and the owner, and I think that interface is maybe an interesting area for us to center our conversation around today. Personally, so last thought, personally, I started my career as an architect and moved into technology and have kind of been connected to construction since one of my first summer jobs doing demolition in a local contractor's company.
All right, so you were a demo guy, huh?
That's fun. Hey, when you're a teenager and you're full of all that energy, swinging a sledgehammer around is a good summer job.
Yeah, I always tell my friends I'll always show up for demo day, but don't ask me to do anything creative or constructive. I can always bang down, but I can't build up, huh?
Well, you start that way, but
yeah.
You can build pretty well right now. Right?
I'm curious, though, how did you move from architecture to technology?
Well, so while I was practicing architecture, my focus became large, complicated projects. So I was running a studio at one of the larger firms in the country, designing hospitals and university buildings and institutional buildings. And hospitals in particular are complex. And at the time, I have gray hair, so it was a while ago, I really believed that computers should make my job easier and should be able to support the process for everybody involved in a better way. So I learned how to code. I learned how to deal with databases and information and applied that to our projects. And that started to become more interesting and more have a broader impact on the industry. And so I kind of gravitated to that, moved over to work for a software company, and then moved through the software industry to now, leading a global company.
So as you stand at the intersection between the contractors and the owners, what has your experience been in terms of how the best contractors position themselves as partners rather than vendors to these owners, particularly in the large, complex projects?
Yeah, I think today the industry as a whole is facing a lot of pressures, right? So there's the continual pressure in everybody's career of we've got the budget, we've got the requirements, we've got the can't make mistakes and so forth. And that's always getting more and more, right? So as we get better as an industry at executing, the tolerance for poor execution drops. I think the other thing is the industry is evolving faster and faster. New methodologies, new materials, new assembly methods, new contracting methods. I remember when design build came on the scene, and then design build operate, and then public-private partnerships as a contracting method. And so all of these changes fundamentally are about getting everybody on the same page and
Yeah.
getting people to the point that they have shared objectives and a shared risk and reward system. And so regardless of whatever the project type is or the contract type is, I think those contractors that go into the relationship with the owner as though the owner's objectives are their objectives. Of course, the contractor needs to make money, needs to be profitable, needs to keep their staff paid and grow their business. But the best way to do that is to understand what are the outcomes that the owner values. And if you operate in service of those outcomes, you will succeed and you will have a positive relationship with that owner, which then will translate into good recommendations, continued growth, continued relationship with that owner for the next project, and generally building a positive relationship to the owner type, if you will. You'll learn how to interact with other owners in the same way.
So I understand the idea of understanding the outcomes that the owner values, but many times it seems that the outcomes are unrealistic at times from a contracting perspective. And so how does a contractor deal with that tension in such a way that they're able to maintain a relationship, land the project, but not hamstring themselves by setting up expectations that they won't be able to meet?
Yeah, I mean, I could joke and say blame the architect, but
everybody blames the architect.
Everybody blames the architect. I think what it comes down to is communication, right? If there is a mismatch in expectations, right? The owner thinks something can be done too fast or cheaper or whatever that mismatch is, be clear in your information about why you don't see it that way. And approach it that, hey, the owners in general, I mean, there's people who behave badly in every job in the world and in every role, but in general, the owner wants success also. The owner does not want to put the contractor in a position to fail because that means the owner is going to fail.
Right.
So if you go into it with the attitude that, hey, look, your expectations are not aligned with reality right here, and here's why, and let's work together to figure out how we can prioritize or adjust or adapt what we're doing to get on a track that's going to work. And it might mean that, hey, we're going to do more on this part of the project. We're going to make the lobby nicer with the right material that you want. But in order to afford that, we're going to use a lower grade of tile in the bathrooms, or we're going to delay this work. So proposing a solution that is, again, aligned with those ultimate objectives and not just that one item of contention at that one time is probably the best strategy.
As you've been considering various contracting methods and observing people use different ones over the years, in your opinion, what are the top 1 to 2 contracting methods that are most beneficial, particularly in these large, complex projects?
Yeah, I think it varies on the nature of the parties involved, but I think in general, I'm kind of a fan of the life cycle relationship. So that could either be it's a design, build, operate, or a build, operate contract, which are not as common these days. But that every project I've seen like that, everybody's kind of automatically on the same page because you can't borrow from the future because it's your future also, right? I think the other aspect is even if it's not the contract, having that relationship with the owner. So if it is an owner, let's say it's a university, and they are managing buildings and renovations and civil works and whatever on their maybe multiple campuses all the time, right? And so have that relationship where you are not only thinking about the project you are contracted for, but you are understanding the larger objectives of the owner. And then you build a relationship that you are doing project after project with them. Back when I was designing hospitals, many of the hospital systems had favored contractors that they had worked with. And it wasn't a contractual model, but it was a trust had been built and a confidence had been built in both directions that was really beneficial.
Would you say the design, build, operate method is a good one for contractors in that through the operate part, they're able to make up some money on the back end that perhaps they've given away on the front?
I think that's certainly part of it. And I wouldn't say that it's they gave it up and made it back.
Yeah.
It's a different economic model. And to some extent, it motivates the contractor and the designers to consider those life cycle issues about ongoing energy cost or reconfiguration of the building for future use and so forth. It also, I think, is maybe a good connection back to technology, right? So in thinking about that life cycle approach to a project or a relationship with an owner, one of the best assets that the contractor has is the information about what was built, right? And that information is super valuable during operations for maintenance and reconfiguration and renovation, and the skills and understanding of how it was executed, not just what it is, but what did it take to make it. And so that is a value that they can bring to an owner, even a sophisticated owner with a very strong internal construction management or project management team. They understand it, they manage it, but they don't do it, right? And so bringing that skill set and expertise and sensibility into the relationship is a really big opportunity in the continuing operations phase for the contractors.
Yeah, it's interesting. It sounds like with that particular method that one would have to shift the mindset a little bit as a contractor from, going from one project to the next to setting up a structure within your business to maintain those relationships for those specific projects moving forward.
Yeah, and maybe, like a micro example, right? So in picking a piece of equipment or a window or something that you want to install, and you bid with 3 equals and you put in your shop drawings. If you are only thinking about now and the small cycle and not thinking about a owner's outcome relationship and a life cycle relationship, you are going to maximize first cost. So you're going to focus on how can you meet the requirements as cheaply as possible without breaking the rules. And that is fundamentally short-sighted, because that comes back and, it's going to show up later, and you're not going to win a job in the future, or your relationship's going to go bad in the future when that, surfaces. The consequences of those short-sighted decisions surface.
Yeah. It's interesting, in any complex project, obviously there's a ton of partnering that should be going on, but the face that an owner presents to the contractor and the contractor presents to the owner is just one face, so to speak. And many times in construction, we talk about we're making sausage, and the client doesn't necessarily need to see exactly how we're making the sausage, as long as the sausage tastes good. So what's the right balance between transparency and not overwhelming owners with details that perhaps would disturb them unnecessarily?
Yeah, I think, the sausage analogy, we all love that one because none of us really wants to see how sausage is made, but we love eating it. And I think it's maybe not a bad mindset for the contractor. So I'm a big believer that in a lot of things, you always want to center your planning, your activity, your communication, your prioritization around the intended outcome. And if you think of that for your information as well, lead with that. So if there is, hey, the new sausage is coming and this is the spicy one, and so we got to get it right, really share the information that the owner is going to care about in relation to the outcome that the owner cares about. They don't really need to know all of the pieces, but they're going to care about, does it, first of all, meet our requirements? Does it add any value that we hadn't expected because it's better spices or whatever? Is it on time and on cost, the basic stuff? And then what information are we going to need to know for the life cycle going forward? What's its shelf life or whatever? I think I've stretched the sausage as far as I can.
Yeah.
But I think it comes down to the data that matters to what the owner cares about. If you're talking about which work crew is showing up on Thursday and they've got to move this other piece of equipment out of the way and all that stuff, the owner doesn't care. And it frankly, that oversharing of details can sometimes raise a little red flag with the owner, right? Why are you telling me all that stuff? Are you trying to distract me from the main issue, right? Or at best, it just burns time in the conversation and wastes. There's only so much information that can be absorbed before you have a successful delivery of the information that mattered.
Yeah, it's interesting. All right, quick break. to talk about my book, Construction Genius. This is what I want you to do. Go to Amazon, search for the book, read all of the 5-star reviews, because there's a ton of them. Over 50 to be precise. And the reason I want you to read them is because real people wrote those reviews who've actually read the book. And it'll give you an idea of why you should go and buy a copy right now on Amazon. And here's the deal. If you purchase 10 or more copies for your company, and then send me an email, eric@constructiongenius.com, I'll come in via Zoom and do a 1-hour Q&A and a bonus training session with your team at no charge. I normally charge $4,500 for an hour of my time. And again, for you, I'll do it at no charge if you buy 10 or more copies of my book. And the reason you should buy it is all in the title. It's effective, hands-on, practical, simple, no BS, leadership, strategy, sales, and marketing advice for construction companies. So if you're in the construction industry, this book is for you. So you can get it on Amazon. You can also get it on Audible in the audio version as well, narrated by yours truly. And I know you'll really enjoy it. So go out and get the book. And now back to the interview. As you're working with owners and, with your software, you're working with them every day. What's the difference between a functional owner and a dysfunctional owner from an internal perspective?
Yeah, I think from owners' perspectives, when they're looking at a project or a portfolio project or their whole real estate portfolio, whatever, they kind of have 3 objectives in how they operate, right? The first one is they want visibility into what's happening. Where are we? What's happening? Are we on track? Are we on time? Are we getting what we want? And they want to be able to analyze that to see what that means to them.
Yeah.
One of the things that is, I think, the most eternal truth we can all agree is change, right? So change happens. It happens on the contractor side. You discovered a existing condition to deal with, or materials not available or whatever. But it also happens on the owner side, and their objectives can change and maybe impacted by another project that you're not even part of. So they want that information and visibility into that information so that they can analyze what it means to them. And so if the contractor is well connected to that information system, it helps both parties. The second thing that the owner cares about is control and execution, right? So they have a lot going on, just like the general contractor does or any of the subcontractors do. And from their point of view, they want to know that they are in command of what's happening. They can make the decisions they need to make. They can approve what they need to approve or give feedback and guidance where it's needed. And probably, again, especially in larger owners, not just for this project, for lots of projects.
Yeah.
I'll go back to my healthcare experience. Those kind of projects have materials standards. They have suppliers for materials because they have to be interchangeable as they manage and operate their facility. And I guess the third thing that the owner cares about is, from their perspective, just like the contractor, they are trying to reach their maximum efficiency in how they work. On their side, just like it's a pain in the butt to make a change order, it's a pain in the butt to review one and approve it and find the budget to pay for it. And so they have the other half of the pain on all these points, and they need to be really efficient at that. And again, that's where information and information systems can come into play, because if the contractor can deliver the information into the owner's system, so the owner is equipped to evaluate the issue, give the recommendation, the feedback, the approval, etc., the owner can be more efficient and therefore get the answers and the information back to the contractor in a faster way. And with that, the owner is trying to automate as much of that as possible. So one of the things that we see is more and more the information standards, the database protocols, the software used, the workflows being defined are becoming contractual requirements that really matter. I think back, 10, 15 years ago, everybody had a CAD standards. You had to deliver CAD drawings. And the owners never really looked at them, and it didn't really matter and whatever. Nowadays, that information standard in the contract for a lot of owners is super real, because it gives them those 3 things that they want, that visibility and analysis, the control and the efficiency and automation that they need to do on their side. So if the contractor's aware of that and you structure that into your interactions, you're going to get the best result from those interactions and you're going to get the answers you want fastest. Well, you're going to get the answers fastest. Whether the one you want is up to a whole bunch of other factors.
So speaking of the speed of getting the answers, when we began, you talked about how you moved from architecture to technology. And part of that was because you became sort of a practitioner of technology as you were an architect. As we see the proliferation of AI, which, in effect is a hybrid, again, or another iteration of the technology, software, and those kinds of things. It's obviously different, but nevertheless, how are you seeing AI practically affect these three areas in terms of the way software and technology is being used?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think maybe I'll preface it with just what is technology in the construction space. I think one of the things throughout my whole career that probably go to almost any conference and you would hear someone cite the statistic that the construction industry is one of the least digitized industries on the planet, but it is the largest industry on the planet. And so here we are spending the most money, having the biggest impact on society, on people, buildings and roads and bridges and tunnels and power plants. That's what fuels society. That's what everything else that we do is dependent on. And yet we are not optimizing that by leveraging technology in many ways. Now that is improving and it is not the same everywhere. A quote I love is from William Gibson, the author. The future's already here. It's just not evenly distributed.
Yeah.
And if you look at the construction industry, that's true. There are some construction projects with lots of technology and automation and RFID tags and laser scanning and all sorts of stuff, and even little robot dogs with scanners on the back walking around, right? So it is there, but it's not consistent. And I think today the successful contractors are those that are embracing technology and doing it in partnership with their owners. And I think it's the same for owners, right? So owners that are managing construction projects and portfolios have the same problem, right? They can't just be saying, hey, get the work done and give me a bill. They have to be using technology from their side as well. So that sets up a climate where the digitalization of construction, I think in the past few years, maybe 5 years, all of a sudden has accelerated. And we're seeing more and more utilization of technology. We're seeing more and more construction companies having in-house technology teams and expertise, maybe even writing or commissioning custom software and systems. Definitely we're seeing that on the owner side, the use of technology for their purposes. And so that's a good thing because it now is going to provide a context to leverage this next wave of technology, which is AI is kind of the face of.
Yeah.
I think as we look at AI, we all remember it's probably less than a year ago when we saw that video of a really bad Will Smith eating spaghetti with his fingers all mutated or whatever.
Yeah.
Now the visuals that you can get from AI are almost indistinguishable from reality.
Yeah.
And that's something we can see. The same is true for data and process. And if we think of AI analyzing a construction project or a change order or a budget, potential there is already really strong. From our perspective, we're approaching AI as an advisor to the humans. Let the AI do what technology does. Sort through lots of data, look for patterns, look for past behaviors and see if they apply or past trends, and present likely recommendations and outcomes and analysis, and then let the people react to that. And part of that is because, hey, construction projects can be pretty litigious. The risk of getting something wrong can be pretty dramatic. People can die if you make mistakes. And so I think that first wave of AI in construction is going to be all about helping us understand things. And then that understanding helping us speed up and make better choices. But it's not going to be that many years before AI is continued to advance and we start trusting it to actually do things for us.
Yeah.
But I don't think that I wouldn't recommend that today.
Yeah. As a company, how are you employing AI in terms of the way it interacts with your current software? Are you developing your own LLMs or are you using off the shelf ones such as ChatGPT? What's your guys' philosophy and approach on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. In a way, the AI world is kind of like the Wild West right now. There are so many. They are changing really fast.
Yep.
Maybe the one you liked 6 months ago is left behind
Yeah.
today. And there are lots of specializations starting to happen. There are some that are really good at visual recognition. There's some that are really good at language, some that are really good at numbers, although numbers in general is not AI's strength right now.
What do you mean by that?
Well, so AI hallucinates,
Yes.
right? And we've seen that in lots of examples. And one of the challenges with if you're reading something or you're looking at a picture of something, you can see something that you can probably see the hallucination easily.
Yes.
If it's deep in numbers in a database, in a table, you're not going to see it. And again, the consequence can be huge. I think the approach we're taking is we're going to connect to AI systems and other systems. As I said, our first area is helping with presentation, analysis, visibility. We're launching soon an AI assistant in our system where you can ask questions. You know, what's the trend in price of steel on our project, or which contractor is always late and which one's faster, or even detailed questions of where are our RFIs getting slowed down in the process. So those kinds of questions that will be very valuable. But if they're wrong, it's not a disaster, right? And then as we all learn together, you'll be able to ask questions that are more substantial, but your confidence will be lower for a while.
Think about the last time you promoted someone into a leadership role and it failed. Why did it fail? I can tell you one reason. People know how to build projects, but they don't know how to build and lead teams of people. Construction comes with its challenges that only insiders truly understand. Generic leadership training doesn't cut it. You need a program to train your leaders built specifically for construction professionals led by an industry expert. And my online course, The Shift, is exactly that course. It has 5 modules. It'll teach your people how to control their calendars and reduce stress and embrace chaos and accomplish their critical tasks. It will teach them the 3 essential messages they have to communicate every day in order to motivate and lead their team effectively. It'll show them how to build and lead a high-performing team, give them a framework for running effective meetings so they'll be able to solve problems in less than an hour, and also give them a higher perspective on their leadership that will enable them to work on the business and on their teams and not get stuck in the weeds micromanaging. So go out to my website, theshift.constructiongenius.com, read all about the course, and then enroll yourself and your leaders in the course, and I guarantee that it will transform your leadership. If it does not, you take the whole course and you didn't get benefit from it, you just send me an email, eric@constructiongenius.com, and I will cheerfully refund you 100% of your money. I'm really confident this course will transform your leadership. So again, go out to the website, theshift.constructiongenius.com, learn more about the course, and start taking it today. So speaking of hallucinations then, what communication mistakes do contractors make that damage owner relationships? And I'm specifically looking for ones where the contractor is not even thinking that they've done some damage. And then, an email comes in on Wednesday afternoon that kind of blindsides them. And they're like, wow, I didn't know that was the case.
Yeah, I think there's probably 2 main things that I've seen over the years. One is bad news doesn't age well, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's an obvious one, but it's so common that there's a problem, it surfaced, and rather than raise a flag and say, hey, look, we're going to try and figure this out, they stay inside. And because they aren't sharing and aren't exposing the issue to the owner is making other decisions, not knowing that something's at risk here with this problem, this bad news. And so the blind side can come that now the owner has made a decision not knowing that the beam doesn't fit or whatever.
Yes.
And then when the bad news arrives, the owner's like, well, why didn't you tell me last week? Because then we just did this other thing. So I think that's probably the most common and most avoidable, but it's also maybe the most human nature, right? Nobody
Yeah.
likes giving someone bad news, and so you want to solve it yourself first. So I would say that's the first one. The second one is incomplete information. So when you are interacting with the owner, if you, again, are only considering, you're not considering the outcome, you're not considering the context, again, a decision can be made in response to that missed something. And then you get blindsided later because, well, wait a minute, I didn't realize that if we did that, that would change this other thing, or the unintended relationship to something else. So making sure that the information is complete and clear, and if there is an implication or a follow-on effect, that is stated, so that you don't want to kick things down the road and have the fight later. Just lay it out there.
It's interesting because you mentioned it, and I think it's one of the main issues that contractors have is that they're problem solvers. So when a problem comes up, their first instinct is to solve it rather than communicate about it. And part of the art, it seems like, is understand, because it's like, I don't want to be pinging my owner every day all the time with all the problems that are coming up, just in case they might escalate and become worse. And so there's a real judgment that a contractor needs to use there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because there's probably, 100 problems being solved on the job site every day, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it is a judgment of when is it worthy of communicating. But I would tend a little bit more towards over communication.
Yeah.
Have the owner tell you that you're communicating too much.
Yeah.
And importantly, the communication can be, hey, we have a problem with this. We think we can devise a solution, but I just wanted to let you know. And
Yes.
So it's just placing that marker that, hey, there's an issue here. And then you come back maybe an hour later, maybe 2 days later, and say, hey, guess what? We've resolved that. No problem. And the owner probably doesn't even need to know what happened.
Yeah, no, I get that. With the incomplete information, how effective is your software at flagging that incomplete information? Do you play any role in that?
Yeah, I think that's one of the key values, right? So in our software and potentially others, the process of, let's say, submitting an RFI or change order request or something like that, the software flags what you're submitting. And if there's something that's required that's not there, it'll flag it. The approval process could be really simple on some projects. It could be in a big organization. There's 4 different departments that have to get involved, and there's looping approval cycles, etc. All of that can be programmed and automated into the process with what's needed. So it could even be that at the initial submission, there's a requirement for something that is for 4 steps down the approval cycle, right? And just flagging it. And some of those can be hard blocks where, hey, you can't submit if you don't have the information. And some of them can be soft blocks where you can submit without it, but you're going to need to come back and add that information in order to get through step 3 or whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting. Your company, PMWeb, is an owner-facing system. Why do owners pick your software over other softwares that are similar? And what can contractors learn from that selection about picking their own software for the various needs that they have?
Yeah, good question. I think the primary reason that we are, the premier solution in our space is because we have functionality for that whole life cycle for the owner. So everything from initial capital planning and budgeting and strategic activities through starting up projects, executing projects, handovers and operations, and even all the way through to decommissioning and so forth, as well as being relevant for a whole portfolio of projects. We have some customers, maybe I won't name names here, but maybe a large financial institution. They have skyscrapers in all the big cities. They've got bank branches all over the world. They've got little ATMs everywhere. Every one of those has projects. They may be running 30,000 active projects at one time, ranging from a multi-billion-dollar tower to getting the graffiti off of an ATM. And so having that flexibility and scope is a key factor. And then I guess the last one is we're highly configurable to match the workflows and system integrations that the owners have. Today, every project or every owner and probably every contractor, there's no one piece of software you're going to use to do your work. There's dozens. And the integration between those systems, maybe you're using SAP for your financials and you're using scheduling software and you're using some kind of CAD software management system and you're using, a personnel or equipment management software, whatever, connecting all those things and bringing them together from the owner's perspective so that when they're looking at the budget and the planning and the progress on the project, they can see all of that and get that visibility to analyze what they do next.
And so we were beginning to touch on this, but how can contractors continue to use technology in a more efficient way to improve collaboration with owners rather than create barriers?
Yeah, I think, the key word there is collaboration. So understanding, I think today on especially larger projects or when dealing with larger or sophisticated owners, having a deep conversation about how technology will be in the mix right up front. It's now a strategic component of project's success. It's not just a tool. And having a technology plan for a project so that the contractor's needs are served, the relationship to subcontractors and suppliers on that side are served, but also that's done in a way that it has that lifecycle use for the owner and the oversight use for the owner. And with all the different systems and processes, and there are some pretty big softwares that contractors use from their side that are managing much of the same information that the owner wants to see in a system such as ours. So building and planning for the integration of those systems and how are they going to work together, right? I would say if a contractor is working on a project for an owner that's using our software, that contractor is going to need to use our software, right? And so having an attitude that your workflows as a contractor and your information systems are going to need to be able to interface with various different systems that owners use. And having that flexibility to do that, it may be required, or at least it will give you an advantage in dealing with an owner or winning the job in the first place. Which maybe goes back to an earlier point that many contractors now have pretty sophisticated technology teams in-house.
Yeah.
And that's part of their mission.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit more then, Huw, about PMWeb and what it is that you do.
Yeah, so our software is primarily for owners. There are contractors that use it as well, but it is, as I say, giving that strategic control center for all of your project and portfolio of projects information for that life cycle. We're typically used by owners that have complex projects or many projects or portfolios, and used internationally where we handle every currency in the world and multi-language. There's some really interesting projects where the owners and contractors have interfaced to see how technology can help them deliver projects in a better way. I'll just one shout out. About 2 weeks ago, I was in New York City. I got a great behind the scenes tour of JP Morgan Chase's new tower. And it's a multi-billion-dollar project. I think it's a $5 billion project, one of the largest buildings in the world, and all the information managed in our software. I'm not saying that to brag, but I'm saying the amount of data, the amount of interfaces between different contractors, different suppliers, regulatory agencies, and so forth, and then the whole rest of JP Morgan Chase's interface is a great example of the kind of use of technology that I think the industry is moving to and the kind of work that we do.
So looking at JP Morgan, for instance, what are a couple of things as owners that they do best, which helps them to create those great relationships that they have with contractors? And, if there's a couple of things that you've already said, feel free to just reinforce those.
Well, I think they and owners like them, they are driving for the big picture outcome, right? And so their example, and that's maybe why I shouldn't have named names to just tunnel in on one, but I think they're the country's oldest bank. They're the biggest bank in the world.
Yeah.
They know about relationships. They know about longevity. They know about thinking big picture and long term. And they bring that attitude and that partnering attitude to everybody that they work with. And I think That's a key for success that we see all over the place. And leveraging skills, empowering the team, and having a flexibility in the interactions and relationships.
Where do you see your company in 5 to 10 years in terms of the development of technology and what you guys are going to be doing in any way that's different from what you're doing now?
Well, good question. And I won't tell you everything because...
Yeah, right. Oh, you'll have to kill me.
I'll tell you. But it's an exciting time in this industry, right? So PMWeb's been in business about 18 years. We have a fantastic set of clients, great software, lots of really innovative ways that we apply technology for our customers. But the world is changing, right? We've got AI coming in. We've got hyperconnectivity, the speed of data and processing and all the data centers coming around. And the context for what we do is really accelerating what's available to us in making our solutions and sharing those solutions with our customers. So basically adding more capability, adding more interaction and integration with other systems, leveraging new technologies like AI is accelerating in everything that we're doing. And so I think we're really excited about how we're doing that, how we're giving more value to our customers. And I think the interaction between the owner customers that we have and the construction and even the design teams is another area of growth and opportunity as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so just tell us where folks can get in touch with you and find you on the interwebs.
Yeah, so if you go to PMWeb.com, there's a contact form and you can reach us there, or you could contact us from on the phone at 855-GO-PMWeb. I think maybe just something that people might find interesting on the website is there's some really good case studies on projects and what owners are doing with technology up there. We had an awards program at the beginning of the year. I think about a dozen different companies doing really exciting things with software on construction projects, including with robots and data systems and all sorts of stuff that might spark some good ideas in your audience. And they're all available just to go see and download on the website.
That's awesome. I noticed you have one from UC Davis Health, which is right down the street from me here in Northern California.
Yeah, great customer and doing some really neat stuff. Yeah, I've got a couple signs behind me. I rotate out which one's back there just to...
Yeah, I noticed the UC Davis one. That's cool. Yeah. I know you're out there in Florida. So if I'm visiting the Miami area, what's one restaurant I need to hit if I'm in town?
There's a really good restaurant in Brickell called Sexy Fish. It's a good name, really cool vibe, and great food.
Excellent. Sexy Fish. I'm going to find that one, and we'll put the link in the website or in the show notes so that if you're out there in Florida, you can hit up Sexy Fish there in Miami. Okay, that's awesome. Great, Huw. I appreciate you coming on the show today. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good conversation, and I hope folks find it useful and reach out anytime if you'd like to talk more.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Huw.
All right. Take care.
Hey, this is Eric. Thank you for listening to today's show. And check out PMWeb.com for case studies of how the software is used by large institutional owners. And of course, in the show notes, there's a link to Sexy Fish, the restaurant recommendation that Huw gave us in Miami. So if you're down there, check that out. Also, give the show a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts. Share it with other people. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. Share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit. And always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity. And to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.